Good evening, everyone. Josh's Severe Weather, and happy almost Thanksgiving to you. Hope everybody's been safe as you travel, or if you're sticking at home like I am, hope you have a great holiday, maybe with family coming to see you. So, we are going to talk about the cold that is coming as we march on into the month of December and how long it's going to last. And of course, with cold, we have to talk about snow, and that potential looks like it's climbing here with one storm heading east with a bit of a nor'easter coming up here tomorrow. Additional waves of cold and lake effect to come. And we're going to talk about how far south that snow could get and who's going to get the potential for accumulating snow and even how cold it'll get behind that. So I appreciate you joining me today here. I know I've been a little bit absent here with a lot of travel and family things going on, trying to finish up work. So I appreciate your patience. But fortunately, the tropics are shutting down and it is time to talk about winter here. And you can see snowy, cold weather continuing right on into the beginning of December, maybe even the middle of December, as we see a switch from the last couple of Decembers where it started off quite mild in the eastern and central U.S. Of course, 2 years ago, it quickly turned colder, but then it turned warmer again. I don't think we're going to see that kind of extremes as we head into this upcoming holiday season. Here's a look real quick at the tropics. I do want to mention this. It's nothing I'm too worried about aside from the heavy rain threat. But we do have an area of disturbed weather that we're just going to track here, a bit of an upper level low to the southeast of Jamaica. And if you are cruising through the Caribbean over the next week, this is going to bring a lot of rain up into Haiti and the Dominican Republic, and maybe some more rain coming towards parts of Jamaica and the southeast Bahamas. There were signals a few days ago of maybe a weak low pressure system trying to form here, but not going to happen. I know there's been folks out there on the YouTube with larger followings than me that are just really trying to get another storm to form, and I just think that's irresponsible personally. It's not going to happen. Instead, we are just talking about the threat for some heavy rain as the tropics close out here. And I will show that rain to you because that is important, obviously. But first, I want to show you why they were thinking there might be a tropical system. We're talking a very minimal chance of a tropical depression or storm in the southwestern Caribbean for the beginning of next week. And at that point, I think it's interacting with land. So I'm not worried about that. I think we're done at least closer to home. Certainly there could be something in December over the warmer parts of the ocean, maybe the eastern Atlantic, but at this point, nothing that I'm super concerned with. And a lot of that has to do with the increasing amount of wind shear that we're going to be dealing with and an unfavorable Madden-Julian oscillation. And I don't have time to go into that today, but I did talk about it in videos over the last few weeks. So go back and check those out if you have a few minutes. Here's a look at rainfall potential across the Caribbean. You'll see it is climbing over Central America by the weekend, and heavy rain expected again across portions of Belize, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua. Unfortunately, potentially over a foot of rain could fall in some of the areas that were just affected by Tropical Storm Sarah. So my thoughts and prayers are with everybody in that area. It's not a super wet look, though, for the Northern Caribbean or the Eastern Gulf. So Florida, you can rest assured this is not going to be a big-time rainmaker for you. But we could see some moisture making its way into Texas, where the rain could be used. And that may start here later this weekend and on into next week. All right, we'll take a look at the United States. We do have a storm system tracking quickly on the subtropical jet here across the country, and you can see it separates mild air over the southeastern U.S. with much colder air that is moving down from western Canada into the central and northern portions of the country. And that will be the battleground here. And the problem right now, if you want to see a lot of snow, is that this milder jet here is taking over. So the chance for a big snowstorm in here is going to be very limited due to the fact that we just don't have the cold air in place yet. Now, it's cold enough for some snow, and you can see as we head into tomorrow night and Friday, we've talked about this for over a week, but the potential for a winter storm, but it'll be away from the coast. This is going to be the higher elevations of PA and New York, and especially across portions of New England and Maine. Substantial snow is expected, and that pink area indicates where we have a winter storm warning. After that storm leaves, we're going to crank up the lake effect. You can see in blue here, we've got areas that are under winter storm watches for the next one. That's really just going to be lake effect, but the UP of Michigan, upper lower Michigan, northeast of Cleveland, northwest PA, and the Buffalo area all are going to look at some potentially significant amounts of snow beginning Friday night and Saturday. We're going to talk about that in this video as well. Here's a look at the current storm right now, just some lingering cold across eastern Canada, but all that snow staying north of the border pretty much. We are going to see rain spreading north and east across the Ohio Valley and the lower Great Lakes. As cold air wraps in behind it, some of this rain will go over to some wet snow. It'll struggle to stick, but I do think that does begin to happen. This is 11 o'clock tonight from the NAM model, and you can see overnight a more substantial band of snow eventually occurs from near Indianapolis over to Dayton, just north of Columbus, Akron, and into northwest PA. And that area is going to take over here for tomorrow morning. And those of you that have late travel plans here for Thanksgiving or are planning to travel in the morning will encounter that snow over northern and western PA and much of upstate New York here. And it will spread farther north and east into portions of New England by lunchtime tomorrow, and especially tomorrow night. That's when the snow will fall heaviest. But behind it, things very quickly wind down. And so this is not a really big deal, but it will be substantial enough to cause some problems when you get into the Northeast, especially away from the coast. It will be a washout in the northeastern corridor here. Heavy rain starts in the morning in New York City right around 5 or 6 in the morning. Philadelphia, heavy rain in the morning. Jersey, heavy rain. Long Island, heavy rain. At its worst around lunchtime in New York City, and then that will spread into New England as we get into the afternoon hours, but it will dry out by evening here across the Northeast. Here's a closer look farther east so you all can see. We're going to see rain spreading into western PA overnight and then eastern PA before daybreak. The Delaware Valley is going to be pretty wet here in the morning. The heaviest of rain will fall between about 4 in the morning and lunchtime. That will spread into New England. Heavy rain will fall late morning into the afternoon around Boston and then later in the day across Maine and the Maritimes. But we are going to see that changing over to snow right near the coastline here tomorrow night around 8 o'clock Eastern. Notice there's still enough warm air in place in Burlington and all the way up to Montreal where this may take a while before it even goes over the snow. It may stay rain due to the influence of the river and the warmer water here. So those snow totals are going to get cut down quite a bit in the Champlain area and up to about Montreal. But tomorrow night around 10, 11 o'clock, we expect some pretty significant heavy wet snow falling over far southeastern Quebec, northern Vermont, northern and central New Hampshire, much of Maine, and that spreads into New Brunswick as well. Not Nova Scotia, but New Brunswick gets that heavy snow. It'll wind down in the morning Friday. Then you can see lake effect begins, and that will turn bad as we get to Friday afternoon, and especially Friday night as temperatures begin to drop. And I'm going to talk about that here in just a little bit in the video. Looking at the southeast, we do have some wet weather coming. Now, rain totals are not as high as initially projected. This system's a little bit more progressive, moving a little more quickly. Winds are a little bit faster aloft, so there will be some concerns for wind shear spinning up a few stronger storms, but I don't think this is really going to be a major severe weather outbreak. You can see it's through much of the south here by morning tomorrow morning. This is 7 a.m. And for the afternoon hours, we may have a little bit more severe weather, but I'm not really expecting a lot of that. If it happens, it's primarily going to be from northern Florida up into the eastern Carolinas in this zone in here. And you can see the moisture is pretty limited this time, according to the NAM model. After that moves out, we'll have some upslope snow showers across western portions of Pennsylvania, West Virginia, western Maryland here on Friday. More bands of showers moving gradually southward across the Florida Peninsula later tomorrow into tomorrow night. And I think that's mostly out of here by the weekend. So those football games should be in better shape. So here's a look at how much rain is expected. This is a blend of all the models, and you can see most of it tonight will be in the Ohio Valley. There'll be lighter amounts in the Tennessee Valley working their way south and east tomorrow. It's going to be wet, in particular from Maryland on northward up into the northeast. Earlier, we had model runs that were showing a couple of inches falling in the Carolinas. Those have backed way off, so that's the good news. But it will still be a showery day across parts of Virginia, North Carolina, all the way down into northern Florida. And then Saturday, we lose a lot of the rain potential as this drifts southeastward across the Florida Peninsula. So you may not get really hardly anything from Tampa and Orlando on southward. You'll see next week we have a return of moisture into Texas and eventually Louisiana. I'm going to talk about that in future videos. Where it will be pretty wet is going to be late tonight and especially tomorrow around New York City and up to Albany. We're looking at upwards of 2/3 to about an inch or so of rain expected, most of that in the morning tomorrow. New England will see around an inch of rain, lesser amounts on the south coast, and most of that falls during the day tomorrow, so a wet turkey day for sure, and that's going to move out of here in time for the weekend. Here's a look ahead, and you can see we've got this trough moving into the east, putting an end to a mild weather, and then much colder weather follows. The bluer colors indicate colder air aloft, so that means more unstable weather and colder weather. And you can see it's feeding straight down here from Western Canada into the southeast. So this is a true shot of winter cold. It's not extreme, but it's cold. And that is going to be around here for the majority of the first 10 days of December. You can see all the mild air is locked into the Pac Northwest and Alaska. We do have to keep an eye on what's down here in the southern stream, but right now, nothing super concerning tracking across the southern United States. If we had something tracking across the southern United States, we'd be talking about more wintry weather for areas farther south. But what happens is this ridge builds in so strong that the cold is basically locked into the east and the north and avoids the southern stream of the jet stream. Now, this is next weekend, still very cold across New England and eastern Canada, warming up, though, in the central United States. So we do see eventually a break in the cold coming, but it will reload again as we get to the second and third weeks of December in the east. So quite a flip here from the last couple of winters and what we're used to. Real quick, I'll show you these. These are teleconnections. And when the Arctic oscillation is negative, that typically means colder air moves over to North America from Asia and Europe. When it goes positive, we are typically in a milder pattern. You can see we're negative until we get to about the 5th or 6th of December, and then we're going to be basically around the neutral area. And that means there'll be shots of cold for sure, but not persistent cold. Looking at the PNA, Pacific North American oscillation, that heads positive, which is a little bit more favorable for those of us in the south to see winter weather, but we don't really have all the other teleconnections coming together for a big southeast storm. The NAO is negative, but as the PNA goes positive, so does the NAO, meaning storms are going to be progressing quickly across the country rather than getting stuck down south and east. Not a good winter storm pattern for the southeast, maybe a little bit better for the Tennessee Valley and up into the Great Lakes, but those are primarily going to be clipper systems. And the reason why is that this negative NAO right now, responsible for the big East Coast storm tomorrow, is going to go back to neutral and eventually positive next week. So the cold air is definitely coming, but the moisture is not going to have a chance to stick around nearly as long, except in areas of lake effect snow. We're going to show you that here in just a bit. Here's a look at the GFS model. You can see our storm tracks right over New York City tomorrow around lunchtime. Macy's Day Parade's looking pretty nasty, and then moves up the coast of Maine and then moves out by the time we get to Friday. Behind it, much colder air in place, and you can see we are going to be monitoring the southern part of this for disturbances, which are going to cross this portion of the country, and there's a chance these can try to survive the mountains and maybe spit out some snow in parts of Virginia, North Carolina, and Tennessee, maybe even North Georgia and Alabama here as we get past next Saturday. Here's the first one, tracking around Kansas City and St. Louis, so Saturday will be snowy in those areas. Saturday night could be snowy in Louisville and Lexington, and eventually Charleston, Huntington, all the way down to places like Tazewell here in Virginia. But Sunday, that looks like it fades pretty quickly. The next one comes down next week, and that one's going to be probably closer to the Great Lakes and interior Northeast. But again, this is not a super snowy pattern. This is a clipper-type system. Behind it, again, we see more of the same here, and there's just really nothing for the south other than cold and dry. There'll be maybe a chance for some rain towards the end of next week. So we're going to be monitoring that more. The Europeans got some different looks as the GFS, but kind of the same ideas here. Low pressure tracking into the northeast tomorrow, moving away from Maine late tomorrow night and Saturday. Cold air follows, lots of lake effect. Here's our next clipper on Saturday, tracking into the Ohio Valley from the Missouri Valley and then fading when it hits the mountains on Sunday morning. We get a break here. It warms up slightly next week towards Wednesday and Thursday. Then the next wave of cold comes next weekend, then a break where it warms up, and then it will turn cold again. A lot of back and forth, but generally speaking, cooler than average through the first half of the month of December. The Canadian model, more of the same here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. If you want to pause and go back, you can. But I'm trusting more of the Euro and the GFS than I am the Canadian. But you can see clipper system, and then we warm up a little bit here late next week. We'll have some rain in the southeast. And then here comes the next system, which has some potential next weekend, not this one, but the following, to produce some substantial snow over parts of the Dakotas, Nebraska, Iowa, Missouri, maybe even parts of Illinois, depending on how this plays out. Real quick, we do have a marginal risk for severe weather tonight. I don't think it's going to be that high, but keep an eye on this, especially in Alabama and Florida. You can see there's a 2% chance of a tornado. Tomorrow, there's a larger area that's been outlined for a marginal risk of severe weather, but I really don't think this is a big deal. I'm not going to get too hyped up about it, but something that you definitely just want to watch if you have any outdoor travel plans. The area I'm actually a little bit most concerned with is, generally speaking, going to be in here. and generally speaking, tomorrow afternoon when a lot of you may be sitting down with your families and eating. So keep an eye on that zone here. Here's a look at one of our models just to give you an idea of how not impressive this looks. And you can see here, this is tonight here at about 9 or 10 o'clock Central. We do have some stuff breaking out across Mississippi and moving into places like Tuscaloosa and Birmingham after midnight tonight, and then heading into Georgia in the morning tomorrow. And there are some heavier cells in here, but this is not really a great severe weather setup. The wind shear is high, but the instability and the moisture content are not. And you really need all three of those to come together. Tomorrow looks very unimpressive. We're going to have rounds of storms moving through here, maybe some lightning. The area, though, of greatest concern is mainly the coastal plain and southwestern parts of Georgia here. This is going to be 5, 6 o'clock tomorrow night, and then it fades as it heads into Florida. After that, you could see more shower activity and maybe a few heavier storms near Orlando during the afternoon on Friday. So I do want to talk about snow here for a few minutes. You can see not a lot to talk about just yet, but it is going to pile up in the Northeast, and eventually we're going to see it cranking around the Great Lakes, and a lot of areas of heavy snow here off the snow belts here of the lake effect machine. More snow piling up in the Ohio Valley here than what we've seen in some recent December. So Indianapolis, Champaign on South, Evansville even, Eastern Kentucky, we're going to get some snow on the ground here over the next couple weeks. As we head to next weekend, you can see it starts to fill in more across the Dakotas, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, but we don't yet have a great signal for a stronger system. Here's a NAM model for tonight. You can see some light snow will start to stick here overnight tonight. This is 10, 11 o'clock. Not a big snow for Indianapolis, according to the NAM, but if you get east of Indianapolis, closer to Dayton, we do have the potential to see a couple of quick inches falling later on tonight into tomorrow morning. It's not going to stick around long, but something we do need to keep an eye on here. After that, we may get a little bit of lake effect tomorrow evening coming off of Lake Michigan, but the nastier stuff is expected on Friday. And the wind direction on Friday aims this more at southwestern Michigan and far northern Indiana. If we wanted to see stuff in Chicago, it's got to come out of this direction. Indiana, it's going to come here, but you'll see it's kind of a west-northwest flow. So places like Kalamazoo here are going to have a shot at a few inches of accumulating snow on Friday. Looking farther east here in Ohio, things do pick up here overnight tonight. South of Cleveland primarily. Akron looks like a better shot at snow. Northwest PA, Meadville, Edinburgh possibly, and then we see that picking up as this jumps across. Pittsburgh could see a quick inch of snow, especially west of Pittsburgh. Wheeling, Ohio County, West Virginia could see about an inch. But when you get places like Morgantown on down 77, doesn't look super impressive until you get to the mountains here. Here's a look farther east at the Northeast. You'll see how quickly this is going to fill in overnight tonight, and heavy snow moves in around 3 or 4 in the morning around the Twin Tiers. Then tomorrow morning comes down pretty hard, and then that will pick up into the afternoon in the capital region here, north and west of Albany, and across portions of New England. Quite a bit of snow expected here. Ignore the 32 inches. I think the mountains get a lot, but outside of that, I think most folks stay under a foot out of this storm. And looking at New England and the Maritimes real quick, a little snow tomorrow morning, but more in the afternoon. Heaviest will be tomorrow night across New Hampshire and Maine. Late tomorrow night across New Brunswick, and moving towards PEI in the morning on Friday. Some amounts here could go over a foot. In the mountains, we'll probably see locally 3 to 4 feet. So a pretty significant early season storm on places like Mount Washington. But when you get down to places like Bar Harbor and Augusta and Portland and Lewiston, not a lot of snow expected. We're going to be dealing primarily with some rain. Looking ahead, we are not finished here after this system. We get lake effect day after day after day. And then here's the system I'm tracking. St. Louis could see a couple inches here this weekend, as well as parts of Kentucky and West Virginia. You can kind of see here the European bringing us some 24-hour amounts, 1 to 3 inches. So it's not a lot, but it'll be enough to see. And if you are planning to travel Sunday or Saturday night, this could affect you. So be preparing for that. Obviously, the lake effect is going to be a problem as well. This will be done by Monday morning as we return to work. We get a break, and then we may see some light snow Monday night and Tuesday. But really, it's primarily lake bound when we look at the rain or the snow. Now, as we look ahead towards next weekend, this could change quite a bit, but we see more clippers coming down. And this one paints some snow around the Twin Cities, Chicagoland, Madison, just north of Indianapolis and into western parts of Ohio. And the time frame on this is going to be Friday night and early Saturday. So we've got over a week before this can pan out. So this may change, but just something to keep a closer eye on if you have events or travel plans here for next weekend. Here's a quick look at the European lake effect machine cranking up here. This is through this weekend, and we see the potential for 4 feet of snow coming into places near Marquette, Michigan, and the potential for 2 feet of snow in places just north of Cadillac here in Michigan, and over a foot near the western shore here of Michigan, near places like Muskegon and Holland, Michigan. As we take this into next week, it keeps coming. It's coming, it's coming, it's coming. And by the end of next weekend, we're talking about amounts over 75 inches of snow for a few places. Where most of us live, it's going to be a lot less. Detroit, Flint, we're not going to see a lot of snow, but definitely the Georgian Bay is active. Lake Superior is very active. Lake Michigan is very active as well. Looking farther to the east here, we see the snow here tonight. After that goes away, sorry about that. After that goes away, we see the bands of lake effect starting on Friday, and they get pretty intense here Friday night. The potential to see 15 inches of snow Friday and Friday night in places like Chautauqua and Cattaraugus County, Erie County, Pennsylvania, and of course off the Lake Ontario snow belt here in the Tug Hill Plateau. And these bands may not move much. You can see the Euro shifts it up towards Buffalo just in time for Sunday and then drops it back down. So Saturday night, Sunday, very interesting around Buffalo and the South towns. Very interesting as well, places like Oswego. But you can see here, much of next week will remain snowy as well. So some places here are going to pick up upwards of 5 or 6 feet of snow in the next 10 days. Let's look at temperatures real quick. We've talked about the cold that's coming. Here it comes. This is Thanksgiving Day, mild in the southeast, turning colder across the north. Friday, a lot colder here. And then as we head to the weekend, it'll be well below average across much of the country, with the exception of the Rockies and Southwest. It doesn't mean the Rockies avoid snow. In fact, that moisture may actually warm things up, but the real cold is coming down and hitting us in the eastern United States. And next week, it remains pretty cold as well. Here's a look at what temperatures may look like over the next couple of weeks, and or at least over the next 10 days. We won't get too far out. And you can see the first wave of cold comes down here tomorrow night, and sub-zero temperatures in the Dakotas, teens and 20s in Missouri and Kansas and Denver, Colorado. And down in the Gulf Coast, we will have lows Friday night reaching the mid-30s in places like Baton Rouge, Dallas, Texas, upper 20s in Jackson, Mississippi, and Atlanta, Georgia. So Saturday morning, our coldest, going all the way back to last January. The Dakotas stay very cold. We reload the cold. Each clipper makes it colder and colder and colder. And here's a look at the beginning of next week, and it stays very cold across this entire region. I don't have the model run that goes out farther, but actually, I'll tune it back down for you all here real quick in just a moment. But you can see Thanksgiving will be well into the 60s, all the way up to just south of D.C., 70s into the Carolinas, 80s in Florida. But that's about it. It cools off starting Friday, and then Saturday down across Florida, we start to cool things down. But South Florida not really participating in this cold snap. It will get chillier, but you can see the worst it gets maybe is Miami. We have a high of 71 degrees and a low at night of 55. I mean, it's cool for South Florida standards. It's not chilly, though. I say that, but the iguanas will still be putting on their coats probably. All right, so here's a look at one of our coldest mornings. This is Tuesday morning, Western Carolina, single digits and teens. For those that are still dealing with the aftermath of Helene, teens across Indiana with that fresh snow cover. It does come up a little bit on Wednesday. You see we get a little bit of relief in the cold, and then it gets worse again towards next weekend. And I did want to show that to you here in the Northeast real quick so you can see what's coming in the longer range. It'll be cold this weekend, but nothing unusual. We will warm up just a little bit, but then take a look at what's coming towards next weekend in the Northeast and New England. Sub-zero temperatures Saturday morning. Potentially worse as we get towards about the 11th or 12th here. Take a look at some of this cold. Some record lows possible if this model's correct by the 11th of December. So that's all I have for everybody. Probably not going to be on tomorrow, just to be honest with you all. We will have updates as the storm progresses, but I think most folks will be with their families and hopefully are thankful for the opportunity maybe to have the day off with time with family. And if you don't, that's okay. I'm going to spend some time in prayer for you. I'm a Christian, and I give God all the honor and glory. And I just thank him every day for giving me this opportunity to share the weather with you all, to have this blessing of being a meteorologist. Psalm 96, sing to the Lord a new song. Sing to the Lord, all the earth. Sing to the Lord, praise his name. Proclaim his salvation day after day. Declare his glory among the nations, his marvelous deeds among all peoples. For great is the Lord and most worthy of praise. He is to be feared above all gods, for all the gods of the nations are idols, but the Lord made the heavens. Splendor and majesty are before him, strength and glory are in his sanctuary. And that strength comes from Jesus Christ, who died on the cross so that we have the hope of living eternally with him in heaven one day. And because of that hope, I will not be ashamed to declare his glory amongst all nations and amongst all peoples, since God created all of us. And in my opinion, we all need to be thankful to him above all the other things we may be thankful for tomorrow. Yes, it's great to be able to have a job and health and family and friends and some money, but it's greater to be able to live eternally when Jesus Christ is already up there in heaven waiting for you. So I encourage you to spend some time in prayer if that is your thing. But if not, if you have any prayer requests, I will do the Lord's work and help pray for you or anybody else in your life that may be important to you. So I thank you all for your time today, and I will catch up with you all here likely on Friday. See you then.